right, folks, as promised, we are right back with this all-important conversation. And like I said, we are live on a number of platforms. We're live on Twitch, we're live on YouTube, live on Facebook, I believe, and of course, live on terrestrial TV. And we want to invite all of you to take part in this very, very important conversation that we're having tonight. Are you aware that we have this new law? Are you aware of it? And all around the room, we had asked people, what is that one barrier that broke your heart? What is that one barrier that you're really, really pained by? And we're going to ask Senator Asige in no time because she's just joined the discussion. But once again, I'd like to invite all of you who are watching us on all the different platforms. The chats are open. I have a number of devices there right in front of me, monitoring the conversation online. I'll be happy to sample some of your feedback and your conversation. Ihaji Dixon is watching us live and direct. I can see Wadron, I believe I said the name properly, is watching as well. Brian is watching, and Wanjala is also watching us. And you've sent in your feedback, I can see that. So let's keep the conversation going. And just before we went on break, we had asked the question, what is that one barrier that that was really, really big for us? And then the people in the room have responded. Senator Asige, this is now directed to you. What is, if you were to say, or to speak about one barrier that you've experienced or you've observed to be quite significant, what would that be?
I think the gentlemen on this panel have said it really well. Mm-hmm. The bottom line for me is attitude, absolutely, and mindset. Because I believe that once you fix someone's attitude or mindset towards a thing, then all kinds of opportunity can open up on that particular topic.
Right.
So if you have made up your mind that people with disabilities are this way or that way or less than or you know, not deserving of, then of course that's the end of the conversation. We can't go any further than that. And so in general development, I believe is not actually about buildings and streets and technologies and roads. It's actually, for me, development is attitudes and mindset. Because once you fix that, then you can open up to other levels. People can see and understand and be open to other things that you are broaching to them. So for me, that's absolutely true. And also, that piggybacks on this idea that people with disabilities are a single story. We're a monolith. We're just sick people who need to go to therapy and who need to go to physio, who need to go to hospital. Like, we don't have lives.
Right.
And that is, you know, the common mindset of the general person when they look at us. But actually, we're super creative. We're super innovative. We are ambitious. We're very well educated. Look at this panel. So there's so much more that people can learn and understand if only they allow themselves to.
All right, all right. And still with you, Senator, let us establish the foundation of all this before we confront these failures. From where you sit, what was broken in Kenya's disability framework that made this act not just important, but urgent?
Yeah. So when I came into Parliament in 2022, first time legislator, my resolve was to start immediately on repealing the old 2003 Act. The reason is because, number one, it's pre-constitution. So our constitution, as everybody knows, is 2010. And so this act, the old act rather, was pre-constitution, meaning it wasn't even in line with our aspirations as a country, number one. Number two, it was also pre-United Nations Convention on Rights of Persons with Disabilities. This is a convention, it's an instrument, it's a tool that many states have assigned to, including Kenya, in 2008, I believe. And so this 2003 Act was older than the UN CRPD that we are signatory to as a country, which talks about how to treat people with disabilities, that disability rights are human rights. It takes away disability as a charity model, medical model, like they've all spoken about, and moves it into a human rights model. Like, this is intrinsically our right. We are deserving of being part and parcel of any society. So that's the bottom line, the first things that I recognize as being a huge problem and a huge gap. Secondly, the old Act was not in line with technological advancements, processes that have thus far since that 2003 moved on. It's not in line with ideologies and just leaps and bounds that have been made in disability rights and mainstreaming disability in general. So there are many gaps that I saw there. And then, of course, people in Kenya were calling for a new act in general. Because the old one hadn't worked. For whatever reason, implementation was very, very low, very poor. And so I wanted to come in and also add different angles, including accessibility, universal design. Those are things that have never even been thought of or written in the old Act. Yeah. Interesting.
And still on this, there's a question I have in mind, but I want to put that on the back burner for a second. But I want to tap into your own experience in light of what you just said. When you came in 2022, that was your main aim, that was your main target. You fought for this act. Talk to us a little bit about resistance. Where did you find resistance towards this act, and from whom, and why?
When I first came in, of course, through my party leader had given me this assignment, right? He was like, this is one of the things that I want you to be able to complete in this term. And so when I came in, the biggest resistance or barrier, I think, was people looking at me like, oh, that's just, that's an other issue. On a form you have, a list, and then at the bottom you have other. This was othered, unfortunately, this act, or rather what I was bringing to the table as a core sort of subject matter in Parliament. Now, previously, of course, there have been other people representing people with disabilities in different arms of government. However, I wanted to come in with fresh ideas, also show people that a person with disability is and can be just like everybody else. So authenticity was also part of my push, so that people can see me not just as a person fighting for disability, but a whole person, with all of who I am and my personality, my character is in the job. Secondly, the resistance I felt was trying to make people understand. So I was doing two jobs at once: writing this bill, or writing this act, and then at the same time training everyone in Parliament about how to treat me, people with disabilities, how to accommodate us, how to give reasonable access in the building, how to have technology and devices for people with disabilities in the building. So it was like two jobs at once, actually, going parallel.
On that note, did it surprise you just how much training was needed when you got to this big house where every law in this country is made, which should be literally the cutting edge, where everything is?
Right.
Did it surprise you how much needed to shift?
Absolutely. You would think that at that level, at the national level, like the apex of society, they would be like at a different, they would be leaps and bounds ahead of everybody else. But actually, it's just as bad. It was just as bad. Of course, they tried because they've had other legislators in Parliament. They've never had a visually impaired parliamentarian for several years pre-constitution. So I was a new sort of, problem to solve, I suppose.
That is mind-boggling, gentlemen and lady. That is shocking to contemplate. Can you imagine that? And of course, with the understanding, or maybe the assumption, that house represents the best of us, the best of Kenya. And there's such gaps. I mean, that's shocking right there.
Something as simple as, there's a timer in chambers where everyone can see how much time you have left when you're contributing. I asked them, so how am I supposed to see, Mr. Speaker? When we start, what's going to happen? Oh my goodness, we haven't even thought about that. Things like that, yeah.
Interesting. Elijah, I want to bring you in here for a bit. Of course, I'm sure you've looked through the Act, and you're part of the process. The senator here talked about some constitutional rights, and talked about how this act, the old act, preceded the constitution, and the landscape had shifted entirely, and this particular area was lagging. From where you sit, which constitutional rights were routinely violated before this act? And how does this law actually fix them?
Thank you very much for that question. We need to understand that starting from Article 54 of our Constitution, which speaks directly to the rights of persons with disabilities, there were certain rights that were blatantly violated. That includes the right to equality before the law, that persons with disabilities needed to feel and also be seen as equal to any other person within our society. Also, the right and freedom from non-discrimination was important, because at some point, through either our acts of commission or omission, we were discriminating persons with disabilities, either by excluding them or by having them not adequately participate in our governance processes, or even making them access some of the critical services that accrue to any Kenyan. For example, the right to health, the right to education, and also issues around equal opportunities of employment within our country. Other issues also relate to freedom from torture, cruel, and degrading treatment. We've seen how persons with disabilities are either hidden, some are chained, some are even face death in cases where traditional or cultural harmful practices are being perpetuated within our societies, where children born with disabilities are either viewed either as a curse or viewed as persons or individuals that do not deserve the right to life. So some of these needed to be reviewed, and also to expand the definition of who a person with disability is. With the new act, we have a widened expansion to include persons, for example, with learning disabilities, or persons also with psychosocial and intellectual disabilities that are critical, and also there are those individuals with multiple or hidden disabilities that need to be seen within our societies. So the act comes not only as places Kenya as a country that has made significant progress in terms of its legislative framework, but also ensures that our country is aligned, as the Senator has alluded to the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. We also have another African protocol, which is on the human and people's rights for persons with disabilities, which we are in the process of ratifying as a country, and we are calling upon the state to do so, because it expands it further to now contextualize it in our African setting, to include now issues around having persons with disabilities be protected from some of the harmful cultural practices that are perpetuated within our African context. We can see, for example, persons with albinism have faced threats because of some perceived or myths that are perpetuated in some of the African countries. They are viewed as either instruments or for acts of witchcraft and so on. So the need for protecting specific persons, specifically persons with disabilities, and ensuring that their rights are promoted was important. And this law comes to cure that, and to ensure that even how we dignify persons with disabilities is at a level that is at par with any other person within the society, so that their dignity is upheld, and that ensures that they are seen as any other person, and that the rights that are entitled to any other Kenyan also becomes equal towards them. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
All right, all right. Now, it had occurred to me, and we live and we learn. A couple of weeks ago, Senator Sige had an engagement with members of the press and the Kenya Editors Guild, and editors and journalists from all the media houses. And she did say something quite interesting. She said that a lot of people don't quite grasp just how much, how simple sometimes those adjustments that we're talking about can be, and how much of an impact they can make. I think I failed in something. When you came in, I did not introduce the people in the room to you. And so allow me to correct my mistake, and hopefully by my failure, inspire others to adopt the same level or even a higher level of consideration. Senator, we have in this room with us, to your immediate right, is a gentleman called Alex Munyere.
Yes.
You know him?
Friend of mine, yes.
Yes, indeed. He's joining us from the National Council for Persons with Disabilities. We also have Edwin Okonji in the room with us. He represents a number of groups. He's a head of legal affairs at Andy Speaks. And of course, he's here with us. We also have a gentleman who goes by the moniker Mandegwa.
Yeah.
Right? his government name, as they call it, is Stephen Mainandegwa. Karibu sana, Stephen. We also have Elijah Rotok, who's just the gentleman who's been speaking right now.
Correct.
And then, of course, we have Alan Were Maonga, who's joining us, of course, from Next Step Foundation, where he's the head of people, diversity, and culture. All right? So thank you, and please, my apologies.
No problem.
For that lapse.
I'll ask them to describe them to themselves to me later.
Oh, brilliant.
What they're wearing.
see, that's the thing. You know, when I sat down and listened to her, what she said is that when you introduce yourself to someone, you should introduce yourself not just by your name, but also paint a picture
Describe
of who you are. Oh, I am so and so. I am this high, 5'8", 5'9", 6 foot, 4 foot, whatever. I'm this high. I'm this tall. My complexion is you know, dark chocolate.
Yeah.
I have
red tie.
Say what?
A red tie. Like
a red tie. Yes, indeed.
Yeah. A visual description. Yeah.
Yes, a visual description.
Yeah.
I have a maroon tie with a diamond pattern on it, quite subtle. A pale blue shirt, navy blue suit, and that sort of thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see you.
Brilliant. We live and we learn, like we said. But now I want to throw this question to you, Mr. Maonga. From where you sit, what's the most exciting thing about this new law? What made you jump up and down for joy, if that was your expression, when you saw that it was signed into law and now we're contemplating implementation? What was that thing that was just like, wow, this is amazing?
Wow, thank you. The new act touches on each and every touch point of a human being. So let's talk about transport, let's talk about education, let's talk about health, let's talk about legal service. It touches on extremely the entire life cycle of a human being. This involves persons with ability and persons without disability in terms of how do we create accessibility, how to create reasonable accommodation, so everything to do with the life of a human being. That is the beauty that I liked about the law. Secondly, it's a very progressive law. Looking at the many countries we have across the globe, we are one of the countries that have got a national law that gives us direction in terms of how do we manage every citizen in this country, including those with disability. So a very progressive law is a law that once we all agree on how to operationalize it, we should be actually leading in this particular pack. I have seen different parties trying to be able to unpack it, but then we'd also want to be able to bring everybody who is not being reached with that particular law. So we have employers actually embracing that particular act. We have civil society embracing it, but then where do we leave the person with disability? Who is actually going out there to be able to say, hey, the law is here, and this particular act, this is what is actually required. So we actually need to also slightly break it very granular, to the last person into the villages to be able to understand what is this act saying, and what impact does it directly have to the Mamamboga down in the villages. Lastly, the beauty about the act actually recognizes and actually pushing for initiatives directly that touches on the caregivers. For the longest time possible, we are not talking about caregivers. But this act is bringing them on board.
Absolutely.
And actually mandating national government, the county government to be able to have initiatives that directly touches on caregivers. And I'm seeing that now going into the workplace in terms of a reasonable accommodation. How do you be able to bring in an employee with a support person into the workplace? So many discussions are going still within the country. How do we do this? I look at an organization that would want to make profit, then how do you be able to employ an employee that will be able to come in twos?
All right, all right. Alex, talk to me a little bit about what this new law means for the council. Before we went on break, you had started to raise some challenges that are in existence right now, as far as the council and its mandate and what it needs to actually execute that very mandate. What about the new law blesses you?
Yeah, based on what my friend has said, we are moving from a service provider council to an agency that is coordinating disability in the country. And the expectations are very huge, very high, because coming the caregivers, there are a lot of things that needed to be done before the caregivers are put on board. For example, the Act recommends tax exemption for caregivers, which is very, very critical. And the guidelines and relevant laws from KRA and the council has not been developed. So the expectations are huge, and we really feel the burden of implementing the Act. However, we want to thank Senator because of coming up with this law. Before she came up with this, we had several other members of parliament trying, and they were failing. The button she pressed and she got it is actually magic to us. And we celebrated at the council because we had been craving to have the council rebranded, to have the council given more teeth to bite.
Correct.
Because in the old law, we were only told to do a lot of accessibility and give orders, but we were not given prosecutorial powers. But this time, I think we can now coordinate with the relevant arms of the government to enforce relevant sections of this law. So actually, at the council where we sit, we feel we have been given a very good law, yet at the same time, we are crying that we have not been facilitated enough to implement some of those provisions of the Act.
All right, all right. Mandegwa, you did mention that not only are you a person with disability, but you're also a caregiver. And how excited, or how, really maybe I should ask, what's your reaction to the provisions within the law that talk about caregivers?
When we come to talk about caregivers, okay. That's why I was talking about Kwangu, because I'm the caregiver.
Yes.
At the same time, I'm disability people, I'm affected. So, kuhusu caregiver, it has a lot of challenges because perhaps you have a child with that is autism. Wewe mwenyewe ndio unamshughulikia, wewe mwenyewe ndiye una mahitaji yale anahitaji kama ya binadamu wa kawaida. Wewe mwenyewe ndio unashughulikia yeye. So inakuwa na challenges mingi kwa sababu ingekuwa kuna usaidizi mwingi zaidi kutoka kwa pande zote, whether kwa serikali ama kwa watu wale wengine. That's why on my side to create groups, a lot of groups where I stay, disabilities, people with disabilities, ili tuwe tunasaidiana kwa wale watu wako na watoto kama huo wangu. Ili wewe ukiwa na uwezo zaidi unasaidia huyo mwingine, na tunaweza kusaidiana kwa wingi, kwa sababu ni watu wengi wanahangaika huko nje ambao hawajaifikia kupata usaidizi. But I think one of these days mambo itabadilika.
Je, kwa hii sheria mpya ambayo imetokea, kuna vipengele fulani vinazungumzia haswa hilo swala ambalo unazungumzia kwamba caregivers wanahitaji msaada fulani, wanahitaji usaidizi mkubwa kutoka kwa serikali na kutoka kwa jamii kwa jumla. kuna kitu chochote umekiona ndani ya sheria hii mpya ambacho kinakupa tumaini kwamba the way you're saying one day there will be hope, kuna kitu ambacho umekiona ambacho kinakupa tumaini kwamba siku zijazo kuna tumaini, kutakuwako na mazuri, kutakuwako na usaidizi ambao ni wa maana? Kuna kitu ambacho umekiona?
Kitu ya kwanza nashukuru Senator kwa sababu kwa haya mambo mapya ambayo wameintroduce ama ameleta, kuna usaidizi mwingi naona utaanza kukuja, kwa sababu pale mbeleni mambo ilikuwa ngumu, lakini for now naona mambo mazuri inaanza kukuja, kwa maana vitu zingine ukiangalia kama saa hii mbeleni kuna vitu for example kama diapers for this government ama this time kwa hii law mpya unakuta kuna hizo vitu zingine zinakuwa zinatutatiza kuzipata, zinaanza kupatikana. So ni mambo mingi ambayo naona tutayapata kwa wakati huu.
Okay. Yeah. Asante. Mr. Okonji, in regards to autism, what is in this new law that excites you or gives you hope in regard to the constituency that you speak to?
Oh, yeah. First, let me go back to the question you had asked and just add something to it.
Please do.
And then say the one thing about this act, we really owned the act. Si wenyewe tulielewa shida zetu. So it was very easy, and then it is, you know, when you hear people celebrating an act, it means that they were involved in it, they owned it, they knew what it was about.
It's not foreign.
It's not foreign, yeah. For someone to celebrate something, they understand what it will bring, yeah. And then in terms of autism, you know, first we only defined, when it comes to intellectual disabilities, it was only defined at the UNCRPD. Now, when this new act, at least they involved persons with disabilities in terms of neurodevelopmental disabilities. That is persons with autism, cerebral palsy, ADHD, and then the So most of the time, the people I represent, the people on the autism spectrum, most of the time we are trying to really encourage that, you know, they might not be able to represent themselves. So their legal representation is the caregivers, the guardians, and the parents. So unfortunately, we had really presented a lot of our proposals on the act, but not all of them were absorbed. So we are hoping as the days go by, most of them will be absorbed, because really, in our community, autistic communities, the caregivers are the people, are the custodians of our persons with disabilities. So like you see, like in the present act, it's only at section 57 that mentions income tax incentives for severe disabilities. The other part, you know, we were also hoping that they can always get the 5% that has been set aside for the markets that the county government and the national government are supposed to like allocate to persons with disabilities, can also be allocated to caregivers and the guardians and the parents of the persons with neurodevelopmental disabilities. Because honestly, some of the severe disabilities would never be able to enjoy that luxury, you see. So I think it's a work in progress. As counties are implementing their own bills at county level, their own disability acts at the county level, we hope that more can be done. All because nothing is limitless, you know.
Right. Now, Senator, I want you to prepare the greatest hits, take us through the greatest hits of this new law and what's in it for Kenyans. Really, just I want to give you a quick moment to sensitize Kenyans on exactly what's in it for them. Because one of the things we realized in preparing for this program is that there's actually very little awareness out there. And it's actually surprising for something as loaded and as powerful as this is. A lot of people are quite simply not aware of what's in it for them. But in a moment, as you collect your thoughts,
Yep.
I'd like to appreciate Kanyi, who's watching us from Kasarani, live and direct. Thank you, Kanyi, for that. Dixon also is watching us. We have people like Eric Ndire. We have Julius Mwaniki, who's watching us from Lamu County. We have Duke Otwori, who's watching. Josegi 9F is watching as well. Emmanuel Nyongesa is talking about distribution to all counties and that being equal. I believe that's a comment or a question that he's got. And Kester Buyoya is also watching us. Thank you so much for those of you who are connecting with this very important conversation. And we have asked a question on those different platforms. Please send in your feedback and we should be able to respond to that in no time. But Senator, back to you. Talk to us about that, like the greatest hits of this thing. And I want people to really understand. I want them to really grasp just how much of a landmark this is.
Yes. When you say greatest hits and I'm a musician, like I'm
Precisely.
ready, now I'm ready. Okay, thanks.
It was deliberate.
Okay, so it's really important, like you say, for people to understand what is actually in the Act. It's a 64-page document, so it's a bit daunting for even me. When I was writing, I was like, whoa, this is huge. But it's important to break it down in a simplified version. And in fact, there is a simplified version that has been created in simple language. You can find that on UPDK's website, on my social media platforms, if you want to read it. Now, I'll go through a few of them. Number one, the recognition of neurodiverse disabilities and conditions, like has been said just now. That wasn't there before in the Act. So now if you have autism, if you have developmental disabilities, if you have ADHD, CP, MS, anything else that is deemed as an invisible or a neurodiverse disability, you are now covered by the law. Second thing I would like to highlight is the retirement age has now been added for people with disabilities from 60, which is for the general public, but for PWDs it's now 65. Because we understood when I was drafting it and I was consulting with all these gentlemen here and other Kenyans at large, that people with disabilities, you know, we take a little bit longer to get situated in life, unfortunately, because of all of the barriers that have been mentioned. We don't get to school on time. If we do get to primary school, getting to high school is an issue. Getting into the workplace, you'll find a 40-year-old with their first job, maybe a 50-year-old with their very first job. And so that we don't even have time to be able to accrue wealth, you know, to get savings and to retire with dignity. So we have increased the retirement age to 65 for PWDs. That's the third one. The fourth one I would like to mention is punitive action on people who use PWDs or children with disabilities to beg in the streets. Before that, it was not criminalized. Imagine, that's why you see many people with disabilities on every corner from 8 to 8 p.m., you know, like it's their job. But actually there is a cartel. There are people who are using them in nefarious ways behind them, and now the Act is protecting against using people with disabilities to beg or for alms in any way. Another one, I'd like to say the fifth one is matters accessibility. We're now saying if a building is not accessible, that you can have punitive action against you. Not just a building though, also a technology, whether you're a bank, ATM machines, PDQs in restaurants and any other stores, government services like Each Citizen. If these digital platforms as well are not accessible to PWDs, you can also be called up by Alex and his team at the council and to be told, hey, you need to comply as per the PWD Act of 2025. Another one I'd like to mention is on affordable housing. Anything that government builds, whether it's housing or market stalls, as it's been mentioned, we have 5% allocation of PWDs. So affordable housing, if you see one going up in your neighborhood or in your ward or constituency, you should go and ask how many units have been set aside for PWDs, because the Act says 5% minimum of all of these buildings and commercial areas should be for PWDs. Another one I'd like to mention is, well, tax exemption has been talked about for caregivers and PWDs as well. But what has not been mentioned yet is incentives for employers. People who are looking for employers with disabilities. Already, the Constitution talks about 5% of all jobs, whether in public or private sector, should be given to PWDs, right? But it never had incentives attached to them, because people or employers sort of feel scared. We don't know how to handle, how do we employ, what do they need? Do we need to break down a wall? Do we need to build it, you know? Lots of myths basically that had to be busted. But the other way around that was to say, hey, if you hire a PWD in your workplace and you show that you have made reasonable accommodations to accommodate this employee, then you can get tax reliefs and tax rebates from KRA as well, so that we can actually incentivize you to hire more PWDs. Like I said, we're brilliant, we're educated, we have ambition, we have so much to give to society, but the workplace right now is scared of us, let's just put it simply, right? Because they don't understand us and how to accommodate us. So that's another one that's in there. Hospitals as well have mandates to be inclusive, to be inclusive healthcare, to provide medication and healthcare for free. So people with disabilities, if you have a card, if you are registered with National Council, then you actually can enjoy free healthcare in all facilities in the country. Another thing I should probably as well mention, gosh, there's so much, I'm trying to not choose the best of the greatest hits. Right. Another thing I should mention is on judicial the judicial arm. Now it mandates for courts as well to be inclusive, to have sign language interpretation. Every courtroom, if there is a case going on with a person with disability involved, there has to be an SLI, there has to be Braille material in the court systems, there has to be basically inclusivity from the top to the bottom. So the judiciary has also been put on notice, and I'm glad that the CJ, Madam Martha Koome, has acknowledged this act and has supported its implementation, is actually pushing her arm of government to comply. So that is also in there. So many good things, so many good things.
So many indeed, so many indeed. I want to ask you
Can I mention one more as well?
Yes, please.
This is now for the youth, okay?
Yes, yes.
For young people, especially who enjoy arts, culture, like myself, sports, there's also provisions in the Act that give you the right to access gyms, recreational areas, playgrounds, arts and culture centers like national museums and the likes, libraries, museums, anything like that. Anything arts, culture and sports have to be made adaptable for people with disabilities, because we also want to enjoy, like I said, we don't just go to hospitals and go home. We also want to enjoy wildlife, religious places, arts and culture, music festivals, things of the sort, and also sports, gyms, things like that. Yeah.
All right, all right. These are really amazing things, and I want, as people are digesting what you've just said, I want to bring in some people that we had spoken to a little bit earlier, coming to us from Taita Taveta County. There's some people who had a lot to say about this, gentleman and lady, that we would like to listen to. We also would like to listen to what the president said in regard to this very matter. Let's have a listen.
Kama walemavu, haki zetu hazizingatiwi. Hiyo tu ndio naweza nikasema.
Unasema hivi?
Sababu hakuna kitu tunasaidiwa nacho. Hakuna.
Haki za walemavu bado sioni zikizingatiwa, kwa sababu kama zile barua tuna apply, tunatuma barua na hakuna chochote tunapata.
Na wito wako ni upi kwa serikali?
Wito wangu kwa serikali ni kuangalia sisi walemavu, wasituachilie sana.
Kama kweli katika hii serikali kuna haki ambazo zinafaa kuzingatiwa za watu kama hawa ambao hawajiwezi, naweza sema kwa kimombo wanaitwa physical challenge. Kwa upande huo nasimama nao kidete nikisema hawa walemavu ni vizuri sana wafuatiliwe na wajulikane wako wapi, especially wakati shule zimefunguliwa. Wao wasaidiwe hata kulipa karo, maana wazazi walemavu wanapitia changamoto kubwa sana mpaka mtoto wao mkubwa. Yangu ni hayo.
Walemavu sioni kama wanaangaliwa vilivyo, kwa sababu hicho kitengo cha kuangalia walemavu na hizo pesa za walemavu hazijulikani zinaenda wapi. Kwa kuwa ni vizuri sana kwanza wajitokeze, hicho kitengo ambacho kinahusika na walemavu wakusanye hao walemavu, wakae nao chini, waangalie wanaweza wasaidia namna gani, kwa sababu huwa kuna mfuko wa walemavu. Je, huo unaenda wapi? Kwa sababu sasa hivi tuko nao hapa kadhaa na huwa tunaona wanaishi tu hivi mpaka hata watoto wadogo. Tafadhali kitengo kinachohusika na walemavu waangalie hao watu, watawasaidia.
To all the people, fellow citizens living with disability in Kenya, this framework provides a robust, inclusive framework that provides all the necessary incentives, necessary safeguards to make sure people living with disabilities live their full lives as the rest of society. And the ministry concerned, the Ministry of Labor, will take lead, while all of us, both national and county governments, will play our role, and all other institutions will take their place in making sure that we execute the provisions of this framework and make people living with disability in Kenya proud. Thank you very much. My very best wishes. Asanteni sana.
All right, thank you. Now, there are a number of questions that have come in through the platforms that we spoke about earlier. And I'm just going to throw these questions to the room. One is something, Senator, you spoke about in that engagement 2 weeks ago. And it's a matter concerning, and it's a matter raised by Pendina Peter from Kiambu County. Mm-hmm. And she's asking, why are PWDs subjected to renewal or re-registration of their status afresh every 5 years? And of course, talking about how lengthy and sometimes very difficult this process can be. Yeah. Talk to us a little bit about that and what is in this law that protects people from that.
Right, so historically in the old Act of 2003, yes, there was that provision which said if you're a person with disability, every 5 years you'll have to get reassessed to confirm that you are still disabled so that you can continue to enjoy the rights and freedoms extended to you by the law itself. Now, of course, that doesn't make any sense. I mean, when have you ever heard of men having to be reassessed to make sure that they're men so they can enjoy their rights and freedoms, you know? When have you ever heard women have to go back to hospital every 5 years to be reassessed to make sure that she's to confirm they're still a woman so they can be engaged with and provided their rights and freedoms? Never. And so this is actually a form of discrimination from the old Act. And I'm sure it was not done intentionally. Perhaps, I mean, we all know that Kenyans are very clever. Yeah, we know how to circumvent a system to get what we want. Many people who are not disabled were enjoying disability rights for a very long time.
In fact, there was a scandal a few years ago of a group of people who were applying to the council for those badges so that they can use them to import vehicles, and so on.
You see what I'm saying? We're very clever as Kenyans, you know?
No, the issue was, if I can interject,
go on.
People who are accident victims were registered, and then at one point it was if you heal from the injuries of the accident, then you go for reassessment and you are confirmed that you don't have a disability. So that was the argument then.
That was the spirit of that provision. But what I mean was that it was abused by, or rather it did not serve those of us who really needed it the most. So of course, fast forward to today and us all engaging very deeply with our community, this was a huge issue. And so what I did with many consultations with people with disability is I was able to repeal that part of the old Act, so it's no longer there. You no longer have to be reassessed so long as you are deemed to have a permanent disability at the first point of assessment. So for example, myself, unless it's a miracle tomorrow, I will not, gain my eyesight. And so if I was deemed to be having to have a permanent disability, I no longer need to be reassessed every 5 years. And so that goes across board for any other disability which is deemed to be permanent. And it's a win for us, so that because, like has been said by your viewer, it's really difficult. It's very heartbreaking. It's very traumatic, having to go every 5 years looking for those people, signatures, building to building, county to county, people who have come from far and wide, Garissa, Turkana, Kwale, Bomet, wherever it is, having to come to Nairobi to have to do that all over again.
And it's not
very
instant.
costly. And it's not instant. It takes several months, over a year sometimes. When I was doing it back in the day, before this law, of course, it took about 12 months for me to actually get my disability card at the time. And so that is
And
now
KRA did not give you that grace period?
Oh, no grace period. No. You continue to get taxed until you have your reassessment done.
And do you get your money back, the tax?
No.
You imeenda na maji?
Leave your nine.
There is anything difficult to get from is KRA.
Right.
We can't really.
You know, the thing is, and I'm looking at some of the feedback that is coming in, there's a sense in which a lot of people feel like our society and our state was actually quite punitive, almost oppressive to people with disability. And there was that sense that surely we are all, the president said our fellow citizens, but it felt like, and a number of people felt like that unity, that togetherness, as they say, only exists in speeches and on paper, but kwa ground vitu ni different. Now I want to shift the conversation a little bit to something that was in your greatest hits, but is quite seriously tackled in the law, and it's a question of employment. Now, we all know in this country, if you're a right-thinking person, that hiring persons with disability isn't charity. It's rights. And earlier on, I believe some of the gentlemen spoke about a shift from a charity mindset, a charity approach, to the approach of human rights. Now, let's tackle this for a second. We know it's not charity to hire persons with disabilities, but you people who are watching me today, employers, you still hesitate. You still hesitate to employ persons with disabilities into your payrolls, into your work streams and workforces. Let's talk about why. Can we talk about why employers are actually scared? And let's be really honest. Is it cost? Is it concerns about productivity? Or is it merely what we were talking about earlier, attitude, stereotypes? Alex, I feel like you have a point on this.
It's actually both. It's attitude and it is also stereotype. For example, you can imagine a person with a hotel employing a person with albinism to go and cook in the kitchen. They think that that person is vulnerable. He will burn out with the heat and all that. And some of the persons with disabilities are not easily acceptable because of our disfigured maybe figures and all that. So they think that you will create a bad image on your entrepreneurship, so you won't attract a lot of customers. But on the contrary, if employers insisted on employing persons with disabilities, one, they make the best employees. Correct. Because one, their movements are limited, so they tend to stick around their workplaces. The productivity, they give it to the best of their ability, because one, there is the psychology of compensation. If you don't have one leg, you use one leg, God enables the other active leg to have a lot of energy so that you find yourself stronger in one leg. The same compensation. If you are thinking yourself a person with disability, you tend to give your best to overshadow your inability if it is there. And if you are employed, then the employer would get the best out of the employee with disability because of that simple psychology.
And yes, Alan.
Yeah, I think in addition to that, I want to speak on the side of, in this discussion, the side of the employer. So wearing my HR hat.
That's your field, isn't it?
It is.
People.
It is. So for you to be able to get an employee into the door, there is the minimum qualification that you need to be able to have. And as a country, we have quite many sectors, including the marine sector, where we have marine pilots and all that. So I think with the new act, which now, and I really like how the council has got now the mandate to be able to police and make sure that we meet the bare minimum of the 5%. I think the conversation now should be able to shift in terms of how do we now build the ingredient skills that we need for today and the future. Because that is a big gap that nobody is addressing. Part of our work that we do, we are very passionate about the transition to work, and we work with a number of employers, and there is some of a mismatch in terms of the skills. So you'll have quite a critical mass of participants who have got disability, who have got education, beauty and cosmetology, quite a number of them. But then you find that the very critical skills are lacking. But then the beauty about it is employers who are leading the pace. And I'm seeing more employers actually joining the
Can we celebrate some of these guys?
Yeah, we have KQ doing
well?
very well. We have ABSA doing very well. We have KCB actually also on the track. We have Safaricom leading the way. Equity. So everybody is doing piece and bits here and there.
The council.
And the council, of course, including ourselves at Next Step Foundation.
Now,
so we are all doing very well.
Here's the flip side of that question. Who are the biggest offenders? Who are the repeat offenders when it comes to exclusion? And not to shame them, but to challenge them to be better.
Yeah, I would say we really need to do a lot in the transport sector as a whole.
Transport sector.
As a whole. How do we fabricate our matatus? How do we model our bus stops? How do we enable the boda person just to be able to be mindful and be able to learn in terms of how do we do reasonable accommodation in our way of working? So there are two ways to it. So let's look critically the employer side. Let's critically at the employee base that we have, and how do we move forward? Because then currently what is going around is I'm seeing a lot of is my right to be employed, is my right to be employed. But then what about the bare ingredient? Because we are moving away from the tokenism kind of discussion you're saying. We look at the skills, disability now becomes the rider.
I see.
Is by law now that all employers need to have a reasonable, accessible work environment, including their way of working. So that will be part and parcel of the culture. But then is the candidate pool, which is quite a sizable pool, ready to be able to size this unique opportunity. So tomorrow, let's say SGR is employing, and we are saying we would need to have one of the pilots who will drive those coaches down to Mombasa. Do we have those skills? So it's good that, Senator, with that particular bill that you're looking in terms of how do we revolutionize the education system to make sure that education is accessible to everybody. So then, this phase that you want to go, if you don't want to do education, you don't do education, go and do engineering, and you get yourself into the world of work.
I see.
Yeah.
There's a few statistics that I want to throw in, if you don't mind. Maybe it will also progress the conversation. So, it is a fact that when you hire people with disabilities, you actually gain a lot, as has been said already. Number one, loyalty. People with disabilities are extremely loyal because we understand how difficult it is to actually get a job. So when we get one, we do our absolute best to keep it. Number two, in terms of productivity, people with disabilities, when you add them to your workforce, your workflow becomes one that is more diverse, because the more diverse people you have on a table, the more innovative you can become with your product, with your service, because you have different people who represent different factions of your customer base, right? And so you actually become more innovative as a company when you have people with disabilities on the table contributing to your work. Number three, it's also a fact, it's data. This is not just me talking. It's a fact that HR managers also report increase in understanding amongst other fellow people, non-disabled employees. For example, if I come into your workplace, I teach everybody else, just by virtue of me being there, how to talk to a visually impaired person, how to interact with me, how to be more inclusive, just in conversations at lunchtime, at the coffee station, when we go out into the field, just by virtue of me being there. Because if I wasn't there, you'd never have to worry or even think about my life and how to, work and integrate with me in society as a human being on a human-to-human level. So HR managers also report that. Next is, for example, and my friend here can talk about autism directly because, of course, he is a person with, he's in that, correct. Microsoft actually started several years ago. Microsoft recognized that there's a special attribute in people with disabilities, specifically those with autism. There's something about their brain that is actually very, very valuable to the tech industry. People with autism are very analytical. They have attention to detail like you cannot imagine. They are punctual people. They see patterns in coding and things like that that we, the rest of us, can't even think of. And so Microsoft started something called the Autism Hiring Program, AHP, where they actually were deliberately looking and attracting people with autism to join and then be trained for several months and then now be moved from trainee into low entry-level jobs and then work their way up in the Microsoft company. And then that translated into Silicon Valley in general. If you look at the statistics in Silicon Valley, you will see that that is the most concentrated part of the world or industry in the world with people with disabilities, especially those with neurodiverse disabilities, because of what I'm saying, these special little attributes and trinkets that nobody else understands or recognizes, the tech industry recognizes it. And tech is where we're going. And I will tell you that tech actually as many technologies that we enjoy today as a society in general were as a result of people with disabilities. For example, text messaging was birthed because it was a solution for deaf people to be able to talk to their family and friends. Back in the day, we had our rotary, grrr, grrr. Of course, a deaf person cannot pick it up and talk to anyone. Right. And so somebody innovated this system where you have a gadget that is wireless, and in it you're able to, with how many characters was it? 54 characters at some point, I can't remember. But that then became the SMS system, so that a deaf person can just type their thoughts to their loved ones. And then now look, we use SMSs, whether you're disabled, non-disabled, every single day for everything, right? And so when you start to look and flip the lens on disability and employing disability and seeing them as valuable, then you will actually understand all of the little gems and magic that actually people with disabilities bring to the table.
Right. Now, we did talk about transport as one of the, not quite offenders, but one of the sectors that really suffer from this exclusion. And we have organizations that actually do manufacture. I think there was a suggestion for people like the fabricators, the Associated Motors, Kenya vehicle manufacturers, all those guys, to really factor this in when they are designing the buses and matatus that we use every day. And Mandegwa, I want you to talk to me about what sort of infrastructure, transport-wise, mabadiliko gani ungependa kuona katika magari yetu ya huduma za usafiri ambayo yanaweza kubadilisha kabisa jinsi ambavyo watu ambao wanaishi nchini Kenya wanaweza kuishi vizuri, haswa kama ni watu ambao wanaishi na ulemavu ama watu ambao wana ulemavu, wacha niseme hivyo, because we were corrected, it's not persons living with disability but persons with disability. Wewe ungependa kuona mabadiliko kama gani kwa mfano? Na hayo mabadiliko ni makubwa ama ni ambayo hayawezi kufanyika au ni mambo ambayo yanawezekana?
Wow. Kitu ya kwanza nirudi hapo nyuma kidogo. Mimi mwenyewe nilikuwa truck driver. Na nimeendesha lori kwa miaka kadhaa. Matrela, to assist whatever. Na wakati niliumia, kafanya accident, nilirudi kwa boss yule alikuwa wangu. Kurudi kwake kumuuliza hata kama namna gani, si kuna hizi truck about the automatic kama hizi gari dogo So inawezekana nipate nafasi na mimi niendelee na kazi. So washaina kawaida yao, ukiumia wewe sasa si mfanyikazi kwao tena. So anakuambia you have no power to work, so go home. So mimi nikaambia go home. Kwa sababu sina nguvu ya kufanya kazi tena, sitakimbia vile nilikuwa nakimbia. Ni kama hata nikiendesha hizo long trips na magari ya safari refu, ni kama nitaumia yani kwao huna nguvu tena. Kwa hivyo sasa pande ya kazi ya hiyo transport ikaisha namna hiyo. Unless sasa wakati nikuja mimi mwenyewe kutafuta njia ile inaweza pata ni nisaidike. So pande hiyo kwa swali umeuliza, mambo ya transport kwa serikali, kama mimi niulizwe, ningesema mambo ya transport ama mambo ya sisi wenyewe ili tujimudu na kimaisha, ningesema kama ni basi, kama ni magari, kama hiyo nilikuwa naendesha, hizo zimekuja automatic, lakini pia basi naso pia zimekuja automatic. Lakini mkuajiri, yule mwajiri wako yeye mwenyewe ambao unaona yeye you have a disability na unaenda kuendesha gari yake, basi yake hataki, kwa sababu kuna mwingine yako na miguu mbili pale na akona nguvu, ataendesha hiyo gari taratibu. Lakini wewe ukiwa na miguu moja, hata mimi naenda na miguu moja pale, ataona huyu mtu kwa kuendesha gari ndio ni dereva na akona stakabadhi zote, lakini anaona wewe ufai kwanza, kwa maana kuna mwingine anaweza fanya zaidi kuliko wewe. Of which unaweza fanya zaidi na ufanye mzuri zaidi, lakini kwa mwajiri yule atakuajiri bado unaona anatachwishi. Unaona ni kama yeye mwenyewe hajakubali unaweza fanya kazi mzuri kwa ile kazi yeye mwenyewe atakuajiri. So we have a lot of challenges huko nje, kwa sababu si rahisi uende saa hii kuuliza mtu akuandike kazi unless mtu anakujua. Mtu atakujua huyo atakupea kazi, lakini mtu ambaye hakujui ni ngumu sana akupea kazi, na ndio akupea kazi itabidi akuchunguze sana na kuangalia sana kwa kazi yake ile inaweza fanywa na mtu wako mzima kabisa, na wewe unaweza fanya kama yule.
Okay.
Unaweza fanya kama yule, basi huyo ni mtu ambaye anakuamini zaidi.
Okay.
Kwa hivyo we have a lot of challenges there.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now, when we're talking about the path to implementation, full implementation of not just the letter of this law, but the spirit of it, the shift in terms of attitude, the inclusivity that becomes second nature in our society. This is the dream. I want to go around the room and I want us to talk about how and what can be done to actually create this world that this act and this law envisions, how to make it into our mainstream and everyday, and what are the challenges there. Elijah, I want to ask you, there's parts of this law that actually is like a carrot and a stick. There's incentives, but there's also the stick. There's things that would happen if people don't comply. The likes of Alex would come for you and push for compliance. And I imagine they would not be smiling as he is right now, because it's serious business.
Yeah.
Talk to us about any challenges that you anticipate in this, in creating a world that matches this law, and how can we surmount them?
Thank you very much for your question. One, for us to see a fully implemented Persons with Disabilities Act, we still require some regulations through the Council and also the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection to come up with the appropriate regulations. For instance, we need regulations particularly on how to the registration for persons with disabilities, even regulations for tax incentives. We even have regulations for how to regulate the sign language interpreters, among others. And all these regulations now would provide a particular framework for which how to now implement this. Also, this extends to issues around reasonable accommodation within the employment space. For instance, what does that mean to either an employer within the public or the private sector? So some of these regulations must be put in place, and we are working together with the council and other stakeholders to ensure that these are quickly put in place so that each and every agency understands their role, and also we have an appropriate framework to ensure that this also cascades down to the county level. We have progress, we've made some highlights in terms of the progress of passing the bill, but also now having it becoming an act, we still have to go back to the counties to ensure that the policies that are within the counties, that first of all counties need to set up the appropriate policy that aligns now not only to the Constitution but to the Persons with Disabilities Act and also other international commitments. This will now cascade down towards the society at the local level to ensure that persons with disabilities have a more inclusive space within the society for their participation and also to access various services that they are entitled to, particularly specifically to free education, free healthcare, that all these services require resources, require specific financing and disability inclusive budgeting. And there are some commitments even the country has made this year at the Global Disability Summit that touches specifically on how to now breathe life into the Persons with Disabilities Act, matters relating to now those financing. So we need to see at the county level, is there specific budgetary allocation towards securing the needs and specifically for persons with disabilities, and also ensuring that rights such as the right to education is made accessible. For example, when you're conducting assessment for children with disabilities or providing the appropriate capitation for schools where they provide comprehensive learning to include education for children with disabilities and also ensuring that the teachers are well trained. So this goes a long step towards ensuring that these rights are provided and protected at the local level. So there's still more work to be done. And so some of the challenges that we might encounter is that it remains a good law, but then we still face the same teething challenges in terms of inclusivity, in terms of registration, in terms of also ensuring that everyone complies with this. We are still as a country, most of the public entities are at 2.1% employment, and we want to get to the bare minimum of 5% and higher. So that means it requires more enforcement orders. It requires resourcing the National Council for Persons with Disabilities so that when they come to your agency or to do compliance audits and oversight to ensure that this is done in a proper manner. It also means that the ministry which spearheads this process, especially the mainstreaming units that are within the ministry, need to go down and cascade it to the local mwananchi so that persons with disabilities across the country feel that indeed the government is caring for us and it has some incentives towards the promotion and protection of their rights, and that makes them aware of the various incentives and the various rights that accrue to them by being deemed of being human, and the fact that they deserve these rights as any other person within the country.
All right. Thank you for that, Elijah. Okonji, from where you sit, what challenges do you see ahead of you in creating this new world, and how would you beat those challenges? And as you compose that, allow me to just recognize a few people who are speaking to us. We've got Peter Musembi from Kitui Mutomo. You say you are concerned about the economy and you feel like the economy is affecting people with disability a lot harder than everybody else. You also said you would like men to get extra special attention. Musembi, we hear you.
Why men?
Musembi, we hear you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Indeed.
Already.
Indeed. But I think the kind of help he's talking about, if I'm reading him correctly, is psychological. He feels there's problems there, and he is asking or maybe demanding that, hey, does the government have plans to ensure that all persons with disability are identified, registered, and receive financial assistance properly, just like other citizens? Nowadays, you need connection to get these benefits. This is Peter Musembi. Mutu Kuamua, that's your name. Mutu Kuamua anasema, hi, I have a deaf son, finished Form 4. Where do we have TVETs for deaf people? Please advise. Huyo ni Mtu Kuamua anauliza hivyo. Somebody else here, Njenga Shege, you say, talk about the retired PWDs. Can guides be paid, especially those taking care of retired PWDs, people on wheelchairs, people with visual impairment? This is the point of view of Njenga Shege, he's asking. And then, of course, Kanyi, and just a couple more people before we come to you. Someone with your namesake. I don't know if it's your relative. Maybe you asked someone to big you up, but somebody called him Michael Okonji is saying he's watching from Ongata Rongai in Kajiado, and he loves the discussion. Dorcas Nyambura, 33, says, I believe inclusion in society is still a work in progress, but there is improvement currently, unlike before. And we had asked you folks at home and folks on the Digisphere, we'd asked you, do you think persons with disabilities in Kenya are adequately included in today's society? And I believe this was an answer to that. Okonji, man of the people, from where you sit, what are the obvious challenges that you see, and how would you surmount them?
Okay, first of all, Michael Okonji in Ongata Rongai, maybe we need to meet up and discuss who your father is. Exactly. Maybe we'll find out the same.
All right.
So the numbers to go home with today is 25% and 5%. 25%, Senator, you mentioned, the actual incentive is 25% of the deductible taxable income. That is the incentive you get as an employer, 25%. So you have no reason to say the cost of reasonable accommodation is expensive. That is not an excuse at this day and age. That is a cost you incur once and it's done. If you build a road properly, you will not come to have to now make it reasonable, accommodative for any person with disability, because you are done with it. If you put ramps at your workplace, if you put lifts in your buildings, you are done. You don't have to come and try and rectify them later, because we want to do shortcuts. That's what is landing us into these problems. These shortcuts are even costing us more, because now when you have to now start structuring the building again for reasonable accommodation, it's quite expensive. Yeah. So the challenge that I'm foreseeing is, first, we need to change the curriculum. Yeah. We've changed the curriculum of the non-disabled. In the disabled community, we always say disability is you're either born with it or you acquire. And all of us are candidates of disability. You can wake up tomorrow and you're disabled. You can get into an accident, you're disabled. So don't look at it as if it's for the others. Yeah. You need to make it a permanent, it should be permanent in your psychology that you might need it tomorrow. Even old age is a disability, So when we change the curriculum, there's now the CBE. Now, what happens to the children who are in school right now who are still stuck on the old curriculum where you are told, technology has moved, but the curriculum is still, you have to do beadwork, you have to do kushona, the tailoring, Our children also want to use technology. Correct. They want to use AI. Yep. Why not incorporate it into the curriculum? You hear autistics are geniuses. They see the world in a different way. In a way, I've sat with autistics, and the autism is a spectrum. It's a whole spectrum. No one child is similar to the other. So there are those who are super. They do things that you're actually shocked. You're wondering, are you a person with disability really? You see, so we need to accommodate them and make the curriculum available for them instead of giving them things that they don't even relate with. So those are some of the things that we need to check on. The curriculum, we improve it and make it reasonable, accommodative to our persons with disabilities. The other thing is, in as much as the incentives are there, let us have a positive mind in that we are willing actually to take it up instead of having to be forced or looking at it as if it's a burden. Yeah.
I see.
Yes.
All right. All right. What about you, Alan?
Yeah, I'm happy to see how we are going to destigmatize the discussion about disability, and the Act strongly speaks about the 1 hour per month for media.
Section 81.
Yes, Section 81. How can we be able to disseminate the information, pack it very granular, and start from the definitions? The Act has got very good definitions, broadening the discrimination about discrimination, talking about the public places, and then actually going broad and even going to the Ministry of Health and just picking the classifications, just to be able to have everybody understand what you're talking about. Currently, we are treating disability discussion like Christmas, which comes once in a year. So this month, everybody is up and down talking about disability because of the 3rd of the International Day. But why can we not make it daily discussion so that then it sinks, it becomes part and parcel of our DNA? If we do that, it becomes easy for the architect who is doing a house to be able to make sure that that house is inclusive. It makes it easy for the police officer, it makes it easy for the NTSA guys to be able to give a PSV license to a deaf driver to be able to venture into the taxi hailing cabs. It makes it easy for the magistrate in the courts just to be able to be cognizant that one of the person or 2 or 3 in this courtroom may need assistive devices. So let's destigmatize it. Let's have the conversation more broadly. Let's have it in our radios. Let's have it in our TV. Let it become a normal conversation in all our prime time, where we can be able to have more audience be part of the parcel of the discussion.
All right. Alex?
I have, I think I want to think if Senator could help us. Go and do a further, I don't know whether you have a further law that you can come up with to enhance, or rather to help the council to implement this act. I don't know what you can create so that you can come up with something that will compel all government agencies, even before you approve any budget for any county, they must tell us what component of persons with disabilities have they set aside within their budget. MDAs and all institutions of the government, they must demonstrate what they are going to do in terms of disability inclusion. And if we can create such a rule that no budget will be approved until you demonstrate to us that you are, including programs that are targeting persons with disabilities, then that is the right way. We can even insist on multilateral, funding agencies, that before you come to Kenya, you must have, a component of disability that you are bringing on development and everything, right, so that we can ensure that National Council is helped, because right now we are, our budget is 0, and
I see.
We are really suffering.
Okay.
We see there are litigations now starting to come. Parents are, taking us to court that they need tax exemption, for example.
Right.
The regulations that are surrounding that tax exemption, it is not us, it is KRA that is coming up with. But we need agencies like human rights to come and join us so that we can help to salvage that situation, because soon we are going to have everybody crying and throwing stones on the council.
I see.
Yes.
You've looked into the future. Senator, what response would you have to Alex there before I come to your own contribution?
I think regulation, like you have said, regulation belongs to the implementers of government. Implementers are the cabinet, that they're headed by the cabinet. So regulations and policies will have to stem from them and then now come back to Parliament for us to ratify and vote on, so that they can now go into the public domain and start working for the people that they're meant for. However, this idea about a new law, I would have to look into it. I can't answer you right now on this platform fully. However, I do understand your reservations or your concerns about, okay, now that the Act is here, you're between a rock and a hard place because the Act is here, but there's no regulation, but the public know about the Act. So they're like waiting for you to, to act on the Act, So I do understand that conundrum that is there. What I do want to add in general about way forward and what we can all do.
Actually, before that,
the
people in Kenya, some people know this, others may not know this about you, but Senator Asige is actually part of us, part of the Fourth Estate. She's a journalist by training and practice, and in addition to that, she's a creative. She's an artist. I want you to talk to us a little bit about, and in fact, talk to us as the members of the press and creators and creatives and media people across the country. As you make your contributions and as we wind up, I want you to talk to us a little bit about where we're going wrong. What stories are we highlighting at the expense of others? For instance, you did mention that there's an overwhelming over-reliance on stories of inspiration and that sort of thing, and charity, as opposed to perhaps what would be the ideal. So criticize us a bit and give us something to work on as you make your contributions.
Thank you for the permission to do so. I was thinking of
fire ahead.
No, I do think that honestly, media can really help us a lot in this fight for recognition, this fight to be seen and heard and understood in this country. Because media, at the end of the day, is mirror society, right? And you all have the biggest sort of reach across the country and across the globe, to be honest, especially now with the rise of social media. As I was saying to you all at the meeting that we had a couple of weeks back, representation is really important. So we're talking about employment, like private, public sector, but also media has a mandate or responsibility to also put people on screen with disabilities. I can't think of one show where someone has come and told me, oh, there is a disabled character on that show. Not an actor acting like they have a disability, but a disabled actor who has a disability and is in a particular script or a role. I have not seen or heard of people with disabilities as anchors on primetime news or TV or shows, things like this. Haven't heard of it yet in Kenya. We need to see people with disabilities not just behind the camera, but in front of the camera. Because when I was younger, and maybe others on the panel will agree, when I was younger and I acquired my disability, because I didn't have it when I was born, I acquired it later when I was in high school, I could not see anyone who was like me on TV. And it is my belief that you cannot be who you do not see. You have to people always look for role models, somebody to like emulate or to aspire to become. I did not see anyone who was young, who was female, who had a visual disability, who was a creative, and also a Kenyan. My role models had to come from outside of the country, like Whoopi Goldberg, who also has glaucoma like myself, but she's too far away. So I would really encourage media to start thinking more critically and be more deliberate about putting people with disability on screen, not just as an inspiration story, not just as, oh, these people, look at what they're selling, the little trinkets they're making. No, as smack in the middle, like, protagonist in all of our glory on screen. I think that would really help, especially young people, kids with disabilities coming up. And another thing I would say as well is it's really important for media to highlight the issue on discrepancy in our data in the country. Special census is what I am now trying to push for. I have done the numbers, I've crunched the numbers, and we have found that in the last census of 2009, people with disabilities were counted at about 2.2 million people. Then in 2019, 10 years later, 400,000 of us on average just disappeared. and now we are at 916,000 people with disabilities. The prevalence rate, that makes us at 2.2% of the population, when actually global statistics say every country has at least 15% of its population as PWDs. And if you do that math quickly, in Kenya with about 55 million people, that puts people with disabilities potentially at about 8 million, just above 8 million people. So how is that possible that we are becoming less as PWDs, but the general population is becoming more? That's impossible.
Something
we are not healing at that fast rate. We're not disappearing. We're not dying at that fast rate. Right. So that is, I think, the next frontier, so that maybe media, I would call upon media to also support in that storytelling, that narrative telling. And even generally, has been said, sensitization of this bill is very important. People who have called and we've listened to don't know about the provisions, don't know that even it might even exist. I think that media as well, and I'm calling for anyone, even the public who are out there listening to us, I really would love to see or to do maybe even a road show across the country, civic education. We go, different locations, 2 or 3 spots in every county, talking about the Disability Act, making sure that, people come over, town halls, whatever it is in the market, and so that we can give the information away, because right now it is concentrated in these bigger counties.
Okay, all right. Good people of Kenya, you have heard from a representation of yourself. A lot of questions have been asked, a lot of challenges to how we think, how we treat our fellow citizens, and how we run businesses, and how we build this so-called economy of ours. Lots to think about, lots of opportunities, lots of failings, really a lot to feed on. As we wind up, I would like to appreciate everyone that came out tonight. We'd invited a lot more people. Senator, you notice you're the only lady in the panel, but it wasn't designed to be so.
2/3 gender.
It wasn't designed to be so. We put out a call, and there were a number of them that were supposed to come. Sure. For one reason or another, they were not able to make it, but we believe the conversation has been great. Many thanks to Daniel Kanyi, who's watching and has sent in his feedback. He says, Mandegwa, you are doing great. Somebody here by the name of Mtukwamua again is wondering about a TVET college for his or her deaf son who just finished Form 4. We would like to get you that information. Keep it right here.
Can I quickly give it?
Yes, please. Quickly.
There is Karen Technical Institute for the Deaf.
All right. There you go. Mtukwamua. Karen Technical Institute for the Deaf. I have your chat here. I will respond with that just after this show. But my director is telling me we're entirely out of time. But once again, I want to thank you all at home and wherever it is you're watching us from for lending us your ears for this very important conversation. Now, I charge all of you to go out and spread the message, to create opportunities for this discussion to happen, to create opportunities for fellow Kenyans to learn what's in it in this law for everyone, so that we can have a better society, to create opportunities and partner with the people in this room and others who are spreading this message, so that next time we have this sort of conversation, we have it from a positive point of view. My name is Victor Muyakane. On Sign Language tonight, my Sign Language anchor was Valine Achieng, and we also had Catherine Simaloy earlier on. We want to thank you for choosing us to inform you this evening. Good night, and God bless you.